A knot twisted in my stomach. Sleep had become a distant memory, replaced by a persistent unease, a subtle premonition of disaster. The carefully nurtured indifference of my family, challenged. Nicole. Her reaction promised to be explosive. A scorching blend of rage and that particularly stinging disappointment she reserved solely for me. Albert, how could you? The icy edge of her voice echoed in my head. Her long-cherished fantasies of a luxurious retirement, of Mediterranean cruises and a Florida condo, all predicated on my supposed financial ineptitude, about to be incinerated. The revelation that I'd been hoarding a small fortune while she scrimped on groceries and bemoaned the cost of kale would detonate like a bomb. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments section where you are listening from. My name is Albert Pierce. I'm 64 years old. The shelter director's words, still echoing in my ears, a beacon of hope, selfless act, Albert Pierce Wing, felt like a brand, searing themselves onto my skin. It wasn't the glow of pride I imagined, but the prickling heat of exposure. I hadn't anticipated this level of adoration. Or the inevitable fallout. Retirement. They say it's the golden years. Mine had been more like the invisible years. Before, I was Albert Pierce, senior partner. Decisions were made in my office. My word carried weight. Now, I was just Albert. The old man puttering in the garden, the nuisance who watched too much public television. It wasn't a sudden shift, more of a gradual fade. Like a photograph left too long in the sun, my presence bleached of its former importance. Nicole started subtly redirecting conversations when I tried to offer an opinion on investments. Oh, Albert doesn't understand these things, darling. He just likes his roses. Her tone was always laced with a saccharine sweetness that masked the underlying dismissal. Samuel and Clara were worse. They'd visit for Sunday brunch, their eyes scanning the house, not for signs of my well-being, but for signs of, what? Decay? Impoverishment? They'd offer platitudes about how quaint the house was, how rustic the furniture. Quaint. Rustic. Code for outdated, worthless. I remember last Christmas. Nicole had been hinting for months about a diamond bracelet, something to show the girls at the club. I'd bought her a watercolor set. High quality, professional grade, but still, watercolors. She'd unwrapped it, her face a carefully constructed mask of disappointment. "Oh, Albert, how thoughtful," she'd said, her voice brittle as thin ice. Samuel had chuckled, a low rumble in his throat. "Dad's getting in touch with his artistic side. Maybe he'll paint us a portrait of poverty." Clara had elbowed him, but the damage was done. The comment hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Later that night, after they'd left, Nicole had finally let the mask slip. "A watercolor set, Albert? Really? What am I supposed to do with that? Show it off at the country club? Tell them my husband's become a starving artist in his old age?" Her voice was shrill, bordering on hysterical. I tried to explain that I thought she might enjoy a new hobby, something to occupy her time beyond social climbing, but she wouldn't listen. She just kept repeating, "starving artist," as if it were a personal insult. They saw my retirement as a failure, a descent into irrelevance. They couldn't comprehend that I found solace in the simple things, the quiet hum of the bees in my garden, the feel of soil between my fingers, the satisfaction of rescuing a neglected animal. These things held more value than any diamond bracelet or country club membership. The animal shelter, that was my sanctuary. A place where I wasn't judged by my bank account or my social standing, but by the kindness I showed to a trembling, abandoned creature. Nicole and the kids had always scoffed at my volunteering. "Those mangy mutts," Nicole would sneer. "Why waste your time with those things? You could be networking, Albert. Meeting important people. Important people." As if a rescued dog, licking my hand with gratitude, wasn't important enough. Now, those mangy mutts had a wing named after me. And my family, they were about to discover just how irrelevant they had become to my life. The fallout was coming, and I braced myself, not for their anger, but for the hollow ache of knowing that they would never understand. Never. Pause of hope. The scent of damp fur and disinfectant, usually a deterrent, was my balm now. I pulled on my worn denim jacket, the sleeves already smelling faintly of dog shampoo and something indefinably alive. It was a far better aroma than the sterile lemon polish Nicole insisted on using at home. Pause of hope wasn't glamorous. The kennels were concrete, the paint chipped, and the chain-link fences hummed with a nervous energy. But within those confines, lives were being rebuilt, one tail wag at a time. I spent 3 afternoons a week there, usually from noon until closing. Escaping. Finding solace. I started with the older dogs, the ones often overlooked. Ginger, a beagle with cloudy eyes and a tremor in her back legs, always got my first cuddle. Today, she was curled in her bed, a worn-out tennis ball nestled beside her. "Hey, girl," I murmured, reaching into the kennel. She thumped her tail weakly against the blanket and nudged her head into my hand. Her fur felt thin and papery beneath my fingers. I scratched behind her ears, and she sighed, a soft, contented sound that filled a hollow space inside me. Then there was Buster, a hulking Rottweiler mix with a heart of gold. He'd been abandoned, tied to the shelter's gate one rainy morning. He'd cower whenever anyone raised their voice, but with a gentle touch, he was putty. I spent an hour walking him in the small, fenced-in yard, letting him sniff every blade of grass, every dandelion. His big head rested heavily against my leg as we walked, a silent plea for reassurance. The younger dogs were a whirlwind of energy, nipping at my shoelaces and barking for attention. I'd toss tennis balls, refill water bowls, and scoop mountains of kibble. It was simple, honest work. My hands ached, my back protested, but my mind was quiet. One afternoon, as I was scrubbing out a particularly stubborn stain in a puppy pen, a voice startled me. "You're a natural." I looked up to see a woman standing in the doorway, leaning against the frame. She was tall and wiry, with a cascade of salt and pepper braids tumbling down her back. Her face was etched with lines that spoke of long hours and unwavering dedication. She wore a Paws of Hope t-shirt, faded and paint-splattered, and her hands were calloused. "B. Higgins," she said, extending a hand. "I run the place." Her grip was firm, her eyes sharp and assessing. "Albert Pierce," I replied, wiping my hand on my jeans before shaking hers. "I've seen you around," she said, her voice gravelly but kind. "You've got away with them. Especially the old-timers. They need someone to understand," I said, feeling a warmth spread through me. B nodded. "Most people don't see past the wrinkles or the limp. They want the cute, the energetic. They don't realize what they're missing." She paused, her gaze sweeping over the kennels. "This isn't a job, Albert. It's a calling. And it takes a special kind of person to answer it." I felt a lump form in my throat. Special? Me? My own family certainly didn't think so. "Why do you do it, B?" I asked, genuinely curious. She shrugged, a gesture that seemed to encompass a lifetime of commitment. "Someone has to. These animals deserve a chance. They deserve love, even if it's just for a little while." Her eyes softened. "Besides," she added with a wry smile, "they're better company than most people I know." I chuckled, a genuine, heartfelt sound. "I'm starting to feel the same way." The dogs barked, a chorus of happy noises, as if agreeing with me. I looked at B, at the animals, at the chipped paint and the worn-out toys. This place, this messy, chaotic haven, was where I belonged. At least for now. The unexpected inheritance. The envelope possessed a deceptive weight, the rich, cream-colored stationery feeling oddly dense as my fingers trembled. "Pierce and Dowling, attorneys at law," the letterhead proclaimed in stark, embossed print. My pulse thrummed a panicked beat against my breastbone. Correspondence from lawyers rarely heralded glad tidings. With a hand that shook, I sliced open the seal and unfolded the missive. Legalese swam before me, a dense fog of jargon. I hunted for my name, for anything that offered a glimmer of comprehension. Then, a phrase leaped out, the sum of $1,250,000, bequeathed to Albert Pierce, $1 million. My breath caught. I scanned the sentence again, then a third time, each reiteration confirming its outlandish claim. $1,250,000. To me. Albert Pierce. Details were scant. A distant cousin, barely a memory, a twice-removed relation on my mother's side, had died. It appeared she'd been a canny investor, living modestly while amassing a considerable fortune. And, for reasons unknown, she'd chosen to leave a good chunk of it to me. I slumped into the familiar contours of my armchair, the letter drifting from nerveless fingers. What on earth did one do with that kind of money? A whirlwind of possibilities erupted, a disorienting swirl of long-held aspirations. The roof could finally be fixed, the outdated kitchen remodeled, perhaps even a genuine getaway could be planned, beyond the usual week at Lake Serenity with Nicole and the kids. But beyond such material improvements, a more profound, soul-stirring prospect took root. Pause of hope's future could be secured. The prospect warmed me, a feeling of authentic, selfless joy I hadn't known in years. We could finally break ground on the expansion, hire more skilled hands, and offer even better care for the countless canines deserving of a fresh start. The crunch of Nicole's tires on the gravel driveway jolted me back to the present. My pulse quickened its frantic dance. This, complicated things. My volunteering at the shelter was already met with thinly disguised eye rolls and sighs. They considered it a futile, embarrassing pastime for a retiree. Learning of $1 million windfall wouldn't alter that perception, it would only amplify it. Suddenly, those visions of renovations and vacations curdled in my mind. I could already hear the litany of wants and expectations, demands for new vehicles, extravagant trips deemed their due, and, worse, the unsaid assumption that my wealth was their wealth. The front door slammed, and Nicole's voice echoed, brittle, through the house. "Albert? I'm back." I crushed the letter into a ball and stuffed it into my desk drawer, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I couldn't tell them. Not yet. Maybe never. I needed to strategize. This money was a golden opportunity, a lifeline of sorts. But it also carried the potential to become a weapon, easily wielded against me, against everything I valued. I inhaled deeply, plastered on a smile, and turned as Nicole entered the study, her face etched with the usual dissatisfaction. "How was your day, dear?" I managed, my voice sounding unnaturally strained. "Don't even ask," she sighed, dropping her purse with a thud. "Samuel's car is on its last legs. He needs a new one." I swallowed hard, the attorney's words scorching my memory. $1,250,000. And they thought I was penniless. The resolution hardened in my soul. This would be my secret. My own quiet act of defiance. My way of finally, decisively, seizing control of my own life. $1 million decision. The astringent bite of disinfectant mingled with the warmth emanating from the canine and feline residents pressed against the kennel fences. I ambled along the corridor, my gaze lingering on Patch, the tripod terrier mix whose eyes begged for affection, and Daisy, the calico-kneading phantom doe. Each hopeful woof, each plaintive mew, chipped away at my resolve. They deserved better, more room to roam, nutritious meals, attentive care. Mrs. Henderson, ever the tireless advocate, guided a young couple through the maze of cages. I caught fragments of her heartfelt appeal, we're a sanctuary of second chances, fully vaccinated and chipped, of course, the adoption package includes essential supplies. Her voice, vibrant with compassion, carried a tinge of fatigue. Funding remained a constant uphill battle. I'd witnessed the structural decay, the patched roof, the worn-out bedding. Outside, the autumn wind stirred a maelstrom of shed leaves, mirroring the tempest within. $1 million. A veritable fortune for Paws of Hope. It could fund the long-overdue isolation unit for ailing creatures, expand the play yard, support another veterinary assistant. I visualized it with crystalline clarity, transformed lives, multiplied by the hundreds. The crux of the matter, the ever-present, nagging problem, was my family. Their faces flickered in my thoughts, Nicole's predictable pout of dissatisfaction, Samuel's thinly masked scorn, Clara's practiced detachment. They wouldn't grasp it. They'd deem it their due, funds earmarked for their bottomless list of desires. A luxury import for Nicole, seed money for Samuel's condo, a lavish donation to Clara's current obsession, artisanal treats for canines, fatefully enough. But this transcended them. It concerned Patch, Daisy, and the nameless others reliant on the generosity of strangers. It was about discovering purpose, a significance reaching beyond their superficial ambitions. My resolve solidified in the face of the gusting wind, the earthy aroma of decaying leaves and animal musk filling my senses. I would proceed. I would bestow $1 million upon Paws of Hope. Without attribution. They'd remain unaware of the source. Returning to the house, the stillness felt oppressive. Nicole was immersed in her book circle, Samuel was, cultivating connections, translation, imbibing aged liquor with his equally driven colleagues, and Clara was, no doubt, crafting diminutive masterpieces of poultry-flavored delight. I sought refuge in my study, the one space that felt authentically mine. I powered up my laptop, the cool surface a comforting contrast to my sweating palms. I accessed the online portal for the investment company managing the inheritance. The figures blurred before my eyes. 1 million. It felt exorbitant, bordering on surreal. I initiated the transaction. Paws of Hope Animal Shelter, I typed into the recipient line, my fingers quivering almost imperceptibly. Under reference, I simply penned, a benefactor. The verification appeared on the monitor. It was completed. A wave of weariness engulfed me, succeeded by an unexpected sensation of release. I had acted. I had made a landmark decision. Now, I could only hope it would yield a monumental impact. And pray my secret remained safe. The mysterious benefactor. The silence in B. Higgins' office was thicker than the stray dog fur clinging to my trousers. Her eyes, magnified by thick lenses, were fixed on the computer screen, reflecting the glaring numbers like twin suns. Beside her, young Kevin, fresh out of vet school and perpetually covered in puppy slobber, chewed nervously on his lower lip. $1 million. B finally whispered, her voice raspy with disbelief. She looked up, her gaze piercing. Albert, are you sure this isn't some kind of mistake? I swallowed, the lump in my throat feeling like a tennis ball. The bank confirmed it, B. It's real. B pushed back from her desk, the worn leather creaking in protest. She started pacing, a small whirlwind of nervous energy in her sensible shoes. $1 million. This changes everything. Everything. Kevin, still stunned, managed a weak, wow. And it did. It changed everything for Paws of Hope. The next few days were a blur of meetings, phone calls, and excited chatter. The dilapidated kennels, the perpetually overflowing adoption room, the threadbare budget, all of it suddenly felt manageable. More than manageable. Transformable. B, invigorated by the windfall, spearheaded the charge. She proposed a new wing, a state-of-the-art facility with climate-controlled kennels, a dedicated surgical suite, and a proper quarantine area. No more makeshift solutions, no more overcrowded cages. Just space, comfort, and the best possible care for the animals. The plans were ambitious, bordering on audacious, but B, fueled by righteous passion and a newfound financial security, wouldn't hear of scaling back. She envisioned a place where animals could heal, both physically and emotionally, a place that reflected the inherent dignity of every creature that crossed its threshold. A press conference was scheduled. B, usually shy and reserved, stood confidently at the podium, her voice ringing with conviction as she announced the anonymous donation and unveiled the architectural renderings of the new wing. She spoke of the donors' generosity, their profound compassion, their unwavering belief in the shelter's mission. She didn't know it was me, not yet. This gift, she declared, her voice trembling slightly, will allow us to save countless lives, to provide a sanctuary for the most vulnerable among us. It is a testament to the power of kindness, a beacon of hope in a world that often seems indifferent to suffering. The local news ate it up. Mysterious benefactor saves paws of hope, blared the headline in the Gazette. The evening news featured heartwarming stories of rescued dogs and cats, juxtaposed with images of the proposed new wing. The anonymous donor became a local hero, a whispered legend. That night, as I sat in my recliner, pretending to read the newspaper, I watched the news report with a knot of anxiety twisting in my gut. Nicole breezed in, phone glued to her ear, her perfectly coiffed hair bouncing with each step. "Oh, look, Albert," she said absently, gesturing towards the television with her manicured hand. "Isn't that sweet? Someone donated a fortune to that place you volunteer at." Clara and Samuel, drawn by the commotion, wandered in from the kitchen, their eyes glued to their phones. "Seriously?" Clara said, scrolling through Instagram. "Paws of hope. Mom, you know I'm allergic to cats, right?" Samuel scoffed. "Probably some eccentric old millionaire with nothing better to do with his money." He paused, glancing at me. "Not like anyone we know, Dad." I forced a smile, my heart sinking like a stone. The irony was almost unbearable. They were celebrating the generosity of a stranger, completely oblivious to the fact that the eccentric old millionaire was sitting right there in the room, their own father, whose existence they barely acknowledged. Nicole, still on the phone, waved dismissively. "Well, good for them, I guess. Now, where were we on the guest list for the yacht party?" The news anchor's voice cut through their chatter, announcing that Paws of Hope planned to dedicate a plaque to the anonymous donor, to be unveiled at a fundraising gala. My breath hitched. A gala? A plaque? This was spiraling out of control. It was only a matter of time before they discovered the truth. And when they did, all hell would break loose. Naming the wing. B. Higgins' radiant smile could thaw the polar ice caps. It was currently laser-focused on me, a concentrated beam of pure, heartfelt appreciation. "Albert," she began, her voice thick with emotion. We stood amidst the controlled chaos of the new wing's nearly ready reception area, the air still carrying the tang of fresh paint and newly sawn lumber. Sunlight poured through the tall, arched windows, setting adrift countless dust particles that pirouette like minuscule, joyful spirits. We simply must dedicate this wing to you." A knot tightened in my gut. The concept, previously theoretical, now felt overwhelmingly real. "Oh, no, B, truly, that's quite unnecessary. Think of the animals. Of the sanctuary itself." My voice petered out, accompanied by a vague wave, hoping she'd grasp my reluctance. Her hand landed on my forearm, her grip surprisingly robust. "Albert, you've secured Paws of Hope's future. You've offered a lifeline to scores of creatures who otherwise wouldn't have stood a chance. People need to see that such generosity exists. It's inspiring, Albert. Truly." Besides, a playful glint sparkled in her eyes, the board is insistent. They view it as a powerful way to cultivate future donations. A tangible demonstration of the effect of giving. I sighed, the airborne particles already causing a slight scratchiness in my throat. But the attention. You know I shy away from the limelight, B. And I understand that, Albert. This isn't about seeking accolades. It's about recognizing the profound impact you've had. We can keep it subtle, understated even. Just a modest plaque. The Albert Wing, something simple and dignified. She paused, her gaze searching mine. Unless, you'd prefer complete anonymity? The question hung, laden with implication. Obscurity. It was comfortable, safe. But it was also a deception, a denial of the good accomplished. And, if I was honest, a treacherous little corner of my heart, long accustomed to feeling overlooked, yearned for acknowledgement. A fleeting image surfaced, my family, their faces illuminated with something other than apathy for once. Would they finally see me? Would they grasp that I was more than just a retired number cruncher, a forgettable extra in their carefully curated drama? No. I quickly dismissed the notion. That wasn't what this was about. It was for the animals, for the quiet contentment of knowing I'd made a tangible difference. No, I stated, my voice ringing with unexpected conviction. No, I don't want to remain unseen. But just Albert feels unfinished. A nervous chuckle escaped me. Like I'm a mononymous pop star. BEA's face lit up. Then what is it, Albert? What inscription should adorn the plaque? I inhaled deeply, the scent of pine and nascent possibilities filling my senses. This was the point of no return. Albert, I began, the name feeling simultaneously alien and familiar on my palate. Albert Pierce. My name is Albert Pierce. The phone rings. The newspaper clipping felt like lead in my hand, B. Higgins and I staring back from the blurred photograph with unsettling familiarity. The dedication, the plaque, I'd consented to it all, but seeing it emblazoned in newsprint solidified it, made it frighteningly concrete. Nicole and the kids remained in the dark. Postponement had become my default, the explanations I crafted sounding increasingly hollow each time I ran them through my head. The telephone's jarring ring shattered the domestic quiet. I flinched, nearly letting the clipping flutter away. My pulse quickened. It had to be her. I steadied myself, inhaling deeply, and answered. Hello. Albert? Darling, is that you? Nicole. The cloying sweetness in her tone coated the word like artificial glaze. Yes, Nicole. It's me. Oh, Albert, I was just thinking of you. Are you feeling all right? You've seemed so unlike yourself lately. This sudden solicitude was a marked departure from her usual cool detachment. The last time she displayed such concern, I was recovering from that awful flu, and she was petrified I'd leave her to deal with the arrangements. I swallowed, striving for composure. I'm perfectly fine, Nicole. Fine. That's simply wonderful. I happened to be perusing the Gazette, that dear Mrs. Henderson always leaves a copy on the park bench, and I came across the most remarkable article. About Paws of Hope. Here it came, the inevitable reckoning. Yes. I managed, feigning disinterest, as if the welfare of a local animal shelter occupied the remotest corner of my mind. It mentioned the dedication of a new wing. And a rather substantial donation. Extremely substantial, in fact. And Albert, darling, they're naming it after someone named Albert Pierce. Her voice scaled the registers with each revelation, culminating in a breathless inquiry. I could practically hear the gears grinding in her brain, tabulating, evaluating. The air in the room thickened, a palpable pressure. The floral wallpaper seemed to encroach, the fragrance of lavender potpourri turning suffocating. Yes, Nicole. That's correct. I kept my voice deliberately devoid of inflection. A pause stretched, filled only with the crackling static of the line. Then, a tentative, almost worshipful whisper, Albert, is that you? Are you the Albert Pierce? Yes, Nicole. I am. Another silence, even more profound. I pictured her perched before her vanity, meticulously applying another layer of crimson lipstick, her brow furrowed in fierce concentration as she attempted to reconcile the image of her drab, overlooked husband with a major philanthropic force. Finally, she spoke, her voice now dripping with a disconcerting excess of affection. "Albert, darling, why ever didn't you tell me? This is absolutely marvelous. $1 million. That's astounding. You've always been so quiet, so modest. Who would have suspected such depths?" The word stung, a predicted but still potent dose of pain. The validation she'd rationed for years was suddenly gushing forth, but it tasted artificial, tainted by her obvious mercenary motives. "I simply wanted to help the animals, Nicole." "Of course, darling, of course. Such a worthy cause. And, the Pierce name attached. Imagine the prestige. Think of the doors this will open. The country club will be begging to have us, darling." Her voice bubbled over with renewed excitement. I squeezed my eyes shut, visions of shivering pups and neglected felines dancing behind my lids. Was this the sum of it all? Not the creatures, not the alleviation of misery, but the opportunity to finally impress my shallow, status-obsessed spouse. "Nicole," I stated, my voice taking on an edge, "it wasn't about social climbing." "But, Albert," her voice faltered, the saccharine coating peeling away, revealing a sharper, more calculating undercurrent. "We absolutely must celebrate. A lavish dinner at La Mer. With the Bradfords. They'll be beside themselves with envy." "No, Nicole. I don't believe so. But, Albert. This is monumental. This changes everything." "Does it, Nicole? Does it truly?" The question lingered, suspended in the air. I already knew the answer. It altered everything for her. But for me, the real shift had just begun. I disconnected, the click reverberating in the suddenly hushed room. The discarded clipping lay on the floor, the image of Albert Pierce, inadvertent benefactor, silently mocking me. The reckoning was imminent. I could feel the storm clouds gathering. Sudden affection. The chime of the doorbell, sharp and insistent, shattered the afternoon's tranquility. It was them. Nicole, Samuel, and Clara, arriving right on cue to launch their charm offensive. I straightened my cardigan, a futile gesture against the impending tide of falseness about to wash over me. The door opened, revealing the carefully curated tableau of familial concern. Nicole, sporting a dress resurrected from the depths of her closet, flashed a smile that didn't quite ignite her eyes. Samuel, ever the corporate titan, extended a handshake, firm, lingering, a silent assertion of dominance. Clara, enveloped in a cloud of exorbitantly priced perfume, gushed, "You look marvelous, Dad." Marvelous? I was the same rumpled retiree, overdue for a trim and a solid 8 hours. "Come in," I offered, leading them into the living room. The familiar blend of lemon polish and aged paperbacks, usually so comforting, now felt stale, inadequate somehow. Nicole perched primly on the floral sofa's edge, spine rigid. "We just wanted to see how you were, Albert. After everything that's happened." Her voice was a syrupy concoction of worry, thick enough to glaze a cake. "Everything?" I parried, feigning ignorance. Samuel coughed. "The article, Dad. About the shelter." He avoided my gaze, his attention snagged by a photograph of my late mother. "It's quite something." "Indeed," Nicole echoed. $1 million. We never suspected you possessed such magnanimity. Or such clout." I settled into my well-worn armchair, the leather groaning a mournful tune. Clout. It wasn't power I sought, but purpose, a sense of impact lost on them, clearly. Clara, the social media queen, brandished her phone. The Northwood Gazette shared the article on Facebook, Dad. Hundreds of likes already. Everyone's buzzing. She showed me a screen buzzing with comments and shares. Most lauded the shelter's mission, some questioned the ethics of anonymous giving, and one, I smirked to see, was from Mrs. Henderson, accusing me of grandstanding. "We're so proud of you, Dad," Samuel declared, finally meeting my gaze. The pride rang hollow, a flimsy stage prop. You've really elevated the Pierce name. Nicole squeezed my hand, her meticulously maintained nails digging slightly. We were thinking, she began, her voice laced with intrigue, about throwing a small party. A celebration. Of the article, the donation, you. A party. The very notion sent a shiver of dread down my spine. An evening of strained smiles and vacuous chatter, all centered around a gesture they couldn't fathom, driven by motives they couldn't grasp. Utterly unbearable. That's incredibly kind, Nicole, I replied, gently extricating my hand. But I've been feeling rather fatigued lately. Perhaps another time. Her face crumpled, the practiced smile wavering. But, Albert. Perhaps, I cut in, rising to my feet, you could elaborate on this elevation you mentioned. What does it truly mean to put the Pierce name on the map? Samuel and Clara exchanged nervous glances. Nicole, however, rebounded with practiced ease. Well, darling, she purred, the sweetness returning, it means people are finally seeing you, seeing us, in a new, more favorable light. A light of philanthropy. And prestige. Prestige. There it was, the raw, naked ambition. Not about the animals, nor the shelter's vital work. It was all about status, social currency. My donation, a desperate quest for meaning, reduced to a bargaining chip in their relentless climb up the social ladder. As their insincere praise continued to rain down, a profound loneliness washed over me. Surrounded by family, yet further adrift than ever. The sudden, transparent affection only emphasized the widening gulf between us, a chasm so deep, $1 million couldn't begin to span it. Banned from the shelter. The air conditioning in Nicole's Lexus blasted Arctic air, a stark contrast to the humid July morning baking the asphalt outside. Pause of hope. Nicole patted my knee, her touch a strange, unfamiliar weight. Isn't this exciting, Albert? Seeing where our money went. I stared out the window, watching a scrawny tabby dart across the parking lot. Exciting? It felt like walking a tightrope strung across a chasm of deceit. Samuel adjusted his tie in the rearview mirror, his reflection a mask of self-importance. Clara, ever the social media maven, was already filming a selfie video, her voice a saccharine drone. Hey, everyone. We're at Pause of Hope, so excited to see the amazing work they're doing thanks to a very generous donation from, well, you'll just have to wait and see. She winked at the camera, then blew a kiss. I wanted to tell them to stop, to turn around, to pretend this whole thing never happened. But the words caught in my throat, choked by years of unspoken disappointments and a desperate craving for some semblance of their attention. Nicole parked with practiced precision. As we piled out of the car, the smell of disinfectant and sun-baked fur hit me, a comforting wave of familiarity. It was a smell I hadn't realized I missed. We walked towards the entrance, a gauntlet of chain-link fences and barking dogs. Samuel strode ahead, holding the door open with an exaggerated flourish. Clara, still filming, stumbled slightly on the uneven pavement. Nicole clung to my arm, her nails digging into my skin. And then, she was there. Mrs. Higgins, her face a thundercloud, blocking our path. Her arms were crossed, her small frame radiating unexpected authority. "Good morning, Mrs. Higgins," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Her gaze flicked over me, then landed on my family with an icy glare. "I'm afraid you're not welcome here." Nicole gasped. "Excuse me. We're here to see the shelter. My husband made a rather substantial donation." She puffed out her chest, her voice dripping with condescension. Mrs. Higgins didn't flinch. "I'm aware of Mr. Pierce's generosity. And I'm also aware of his explicit instructions." Samuel stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "Instructions? What are you talking about? We're his family." "The instructions," Mrs. Higgins said, her voice unwavering, or that you are not permitted on the premises. Ever. She extracted a folded piece of paper from her pocket, unfolded it, and held it out towards Samuel. It was a copy of my letter. The one stipulating anonymity and a ban on my family. Clara stopped filming, her mouth agape. You're serious? Mrs. Higgins nodded curtly. Perfectly serious. Mr. Pierce made it very clear. He wanted to support the animals, not provide a photo opportunity for, well, let's just say, he was very specific about your motivations. Nicole's face flushed crimson. This is outrageous. We're his family. We have a right to be here. You had your chance, Mrs. Higgins said, her voice hardening. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have animals to care for. She turned her back on them and walked towards the kennels, her silhouette a stark contrast against the bright sunlight. Samuel sputtered, his face turning an alarming shade of purple. Clara, momentarily speechless, finally managed to stammer, but my followers. Nicole grabbed my arm, her grip like a vice. Albert, what is the meaning of this? Why would you do this to us? Her voice was laced with fury and betrayal. I looked at my family, their faces contorted with anger and disappointment. Not disappointment in me, but disappointment in the loss of potential social capital. The weight of my actions, the enormity of my deception, crashed down on me. I had sought validation, and instead, I had created a spectacle. I can explain, I stammered, but the words sounded hollow, even to my own ears. The barking of the dogs seemed to intensify, their cries echoing my own internal turmoil. We stood there, stranded in the parking lot of Paws of Hope, the beneficiaries of my secret generosity banned from entering, the distance between us wider than ever before. The explosion. The hush that followed Mrs. Higgins' bombshell felt viscous, clinging like Nicole's cloying signature scent. It was a suffocating shroud of shame and disbelief. Suddenly, the weave unraveled. The practiced charm on Nicole's face fractured. What? A ban? Albert, are you serious? You orchestrated this? Her voice, usually a silken stream, splintered like cheap china. I steeled myself. Expected, yes, but the impact still winded me. I did, Nicole. Yes. The flush of excitement drained from her face, replaced by a dangerous pallor. How dare you humiliate me so publicly? She gesticulated wildly at the gathering onlookers, drawn to the spectacle like insects to a bright light. Humiliate you? The word tasted like ash, given her own theatrical display. You arrived knowing you weren't welcome. Because I'm your wife, Albert. Because I wanted to celebrate your philanthropy. And now I discover it was all a charade. A calculated jab, wasn't it? To keep us on a leash, even after giving it all away. Her voice escalated, amplified by the confines of the reception area. A spark of anger ignited within me, a sudden, searing heat. Control. I relinquished the money, Nicole. How is that control? Samuel moved forward, brows knit together. Dad, seriously? What was the point? We could have used that money. Clara's been struggling to launch her business, and, things are tight, you know. He avoided my eyes, focusing intently on a distant point. Clara echoed him, her tone laced with its familiar plaintiveness. Yeah, Dad. $1 million. Gone. Without a word. I had plans, big ones. This could have been transformative. The implications of transformative hung in the air, heavy with unspoken desire. A faster car. A grander residence. A more opulent life. Always the acquisitions, never the intrinsic value. So, it boils down to the money, I stated, my voice leveled, devoid of inflection. Not compassion for the animals. Not the act of giving. Simply the money. Nicole pivoted toward me, her eyes blazing infernos. Of course, it's about the money, Albert. What else could it possibly be? Do you think we give a damn about some flea-bitten strays? We're your flesh and blood. You should have prioritized us. The flea-bitten strays. That was the tipping point. Years of unspoken criticism, of feeling like an outsider under my own roof, coalesced into a single, searing epiphany. They were blind to the solace I found in helping those creatures. They couldn't comprehend the quiet joy of contributing. For them, it was always and only about the profit margin. I believed I was doing something worthwhile, I murmured, my voice barely audible. Something significant. And you think we aren't significant? Samuel demanded, his volume rising. We're your family. Are we? The question remained suspended, unanswered. The chasm between us felt vast, uncrossable. Gazing at their faces, twisted with resentment and disappointment, I saw only unfamiliar countenances. Strangers who judged my choices, denigrated my passions, viewed me as nothing more than a financial resource. The dam had burst. The meticulously maintained illusion of family lay in tatters, revealing the hollow core beneath. And as I stood amidst the wreckage, I realized the preceding silence had been infinitely preferable to the jarring discord of their avarice. True colors. The air crackled with unspoken charges, Nicole's practiced poise fracturing under Mrs. Higgins' stinging pronouncements and my unveiled truths. You shamed me, Albert, she hissed, the venom a relic from our early, ambition-fueled marriage. Shamed you? The words felt gritty, like swallowing sand. Or did I simply expose the price of your devotion, Nicole? A cool million, no less. Samuel squirmed, eyes averted. Clara preened her immaculate jacket, picking at invisible threads. Like birds surprised by a deluge, they were flustered, their escape routes cut off. It's not about the money, Dad, Samuel mumbled, yet his wavering voice belied him. It always circled back to the money. Elite schools, exotic retreats, designer labels, all predicated on an inheritance they considered their birthright. Then enlighten me, Samuel, I pressed, closing the distance. Is it the animals rescued? The lives enhanced? Or the sting of a significantly reduced allowance? Nicole's lip line thinned. Don't be absurd, Albert. It's about reputation. You've made us appear. Appear what, Nicole? I challenged. Like people who prioritize something other than social capital and affluence. Is that the ultimate offense? A flicker, unguarded and raw, crossed her eyes, not the polished veneer she wore for galas. Regret, perhaps. Contrition. Or pure, unadulterated fury at being unmasked. You understood the foundation's importance, she breathed, her voice a low threat. The connections, the influence. The funds you intended to siphon into your pet projects. I finished, a bitter tide rising. Projects strategically designed to bolster your standing. Silence descended, a heavy blanket broken only by birdsong beyond the window, oblivious to the domestic storm. I truly saw my family then, and what stared back weren't the beloved faces I remembered, but distorted reflections of my own shallow yearning. I had coveted their esteem, their fondness, blinding myself to the reality. Their affection had always been transactional, a carefully weighted equation of perceived worth. I gave that money because those creatures needed assistance, I stated, my voice steady despite the aching void within me. Because I wanted to effect positive change, however modestly. Not for you. Not for your image. Because it was the decent thing to do. Clara finally spoke, her tone cutting. So you just casually incinerated $1 million on mutts and strays? They're not mere mutts and strays, Clara, I retorted, anger spiking. They're sentient beings deserving of kindness and care, qualities notably absent in your present behavior. I watched comprehension dawn on her, the stark realization that the funds were gone, irreversibly earmarked for a cause they deemed unworthy. Her face mirrored her disappointment, a clear demonstration of their ingrained materialism. A wave of sorrow engulfed me, a profound sense of mourning for the family I had falsely believed I possessed, for the devotion I had so desperately craved. The vibrant hues of their painstakingly crafted facade had finally drained away, revealing the drab, lifeless pallor beneath. I had hoped for a true connection, a bond impervious to wealth and status. Instead, I discovered only a void. "I believe," I murmured, my voice raspy, "it's time for you to leave. A wing and a purpose." The house echoed with a silence deeper than mere quiet. It was the void left by Nicole and the girls, their incessant chatter and bridal shower anxieties now replaced by the stark absence of my own life's meaning. The grandfather clock in the hall tolled, each chime a dull thud against my chest. Escape felt imperative. Keys in hand, the cool metal a small, sharp comfort, I drove. Not to the usual haunts, the manicured lawns of the golf club, the buzzing hive of that new bistro where socialites traded barbs with their appetizers, but to paws of hope. The mingled odors of antiseptic and animal fur, a peculiar but welcoming blend, enveloped me, a balm against the lingering discontent. Brenda, the shelter manager, looked up, a flicker of surprise crossing her features. "Albert. What a treat. Is everything all right?" I summoned a wan smile. "Just needed some therapy." She understood, as always. A nod directed me towards the kennels. Plenty of furry confidants in there. Hours dissolved as I moved among the creatures. A scrappy terrier mutt, discarded by some roadside, showered my hand with zealous affection. A glossy black cat, initially reserved, yielded to gentle petting, its purr a low, resonant rumble. A golden retriever, missing a leg but carrying the scars of untold hardship with quiet dignity, leaned against me, a warm, furry anchor. Here, there were no agendas, no critiques, no thinly veiled financial expectations. Simply raw, unvarnished need and unqualified love. Settling on a weathered bench overlooking the outdoor run, mesmerized by a tangle of puppies wrestling in exuberant chaos, a fragile sense of solace began to bloom within me. The weight hadn't vanished entirely, but its edges softened. For too long, I'd sought my family's approval, mistakenly believing that material offerings could purchase affection. I had constructed an opulent prison, confusing their dependence with genuine care. Now, the bars were down, and I tasted freedom. The liberty to define my own worth, to invest in something tangible, to simply be. The thought sparked a flicker of something akin to joy, not the fleeting high of a new acquisition, but a profound, grounding satisfaction, the quiet assurance of finally charting the right course. Brenda found me as dusk painted the sky in hues of lavender and rose. "Albert," she began softly, "we have something to show you." She guided me to a newly erected wing of the shelter, the air still redolent of sawdust and fresh paint. Above the entrance, a polished plaque gleamed. In elegant script, it declared, "The Albert Pierce Wing, a sanctuary of compassion and second chances." Breath hitched. A lump swelled in my throat, my eyes stinging. This was unexpected. Unsolicited. I'd simply craved to make a difference. Brenda squeezed my arm. "We wanted to commemorate your generosity, Albert. This wing will enable us to rescue and rehabilitate countless more animals. It's a lasting tribute, a testament to your spirit." A small gathering of shelter staff and volunteers erupted in applause, their faces radiant. Humbled, overwhelmed, and deeply grateful, I stood there. This wasn't about financial contributions, it was about purpose. It was about human connection. It was about leaving an improved mark on the world. Surrounded by the sincere affection of these individuals, I realized I had found my true family. Not the family of my birth, but one forged by shared values, one that esteemed me for my character, not my financial standing. And in that instant, I understood that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in the boundless currency of affection, empathy, and now, a wing and a reason to fly. Thank you for spending your time with my story. Feel free to share your thoughts or reactions in the comments, I'd love to hear from you.